I used to be a flight attendant, and at the end of 2018, I got laid off from that job. And so after that, like with the job search and how unsuccessful it was, and for how long it had to, for how long it had to, how I ended up looking for jobs. It actually ended up landing or lasting for a very long time, longer than I have ever planned. So I was very scared about running out of money. I was scared about um, having to file for bankruptcy, or just, I was just really scared of the future because it was not set. It was very uncertain. So how I got through that was just basically having meltdowns for one. Like you had to. I mean, I had to um pretty much, I had to learn that I had to feel what I was feeling, acknowledge it. I'll, you know, if I just get it out of me, if I had to cry for a minute or for a day or two, do it. There's no shame in that. But I had to keep on moving. I had to keep on going. You know, I had to keep support. You know, I had to keep supporting myself. So, and just doing everything I could to get out on the other side. But also, like one thing I took from that was that I had to learn to keep my mind still, and I'm still learning that. But before, it was not still. But to get through a scary time, regardless of what it is, you have to learn to keep your mind still, because fear will come in and eat you alive. So yeah, that was a very, very scary time for me that I'm actually kind of recovering from right now. So, because I was able to get a job. So now I have a steady paycheck and now I don't have to worry about bankruptcy or anything like that. But it was a really long process and a very, very scary time.
Okay. So, Janine, you talked about a time that you were afraid, and that was when you left your job as a flight attendant in 2018. Um, you you didn't find a job as quickly as you'd hoped that you would, and you, I think, almost experienced some trauma from the experience, and that you had to find it in yourself to physically and financially and mentally and emotionally keep moving forward every day and dealing with all the stuff, all the while still trying to put your best face forward and get to that next step, which is a new job. I I heard you say that you were fearful of having to file bankruptcy, and I heard you say that um, that was difficult for you because um, you really didn't really expect to be in that situation. It sounded like you were saying that you were struggling as much with how you felt about the situation as you were the actual situation. And that once you realized that you were just becoming overcome and constantly thinking about the what ifs, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
and the parts of that that made you afraid, that you have finally been able to be more at peace with that, not only because you have a steady paycheck coming in now, but because you you have found a way to quiet your mind and to uh, perhaps not feel like you have to react or act every time one of those thoughts invades
Mm-hmm.
your mind. in your heart to be able to move past that, to be accepting of that, and to be aware that that's something that's part of being human.
Mhm.
How'd
Hit
I
the
do?
nail on the head with a sledgehammer.
Yeah. I think this is one of the questions that I really wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I felt like I would know what to say when the time came, and now I do. So, you know, um, on the 24th of January was the 7th year anniversary of my dad passing away.
Wow.
So in November of 2014, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he passed away at home on January 24th, 2015. So it was a very short, intensive time between those 2 points. And my husband and our 2 children and I moved in with my parents, and we were there with them every step of the way. And the morning of his death is very clear to me, and it's the only time I've had that experience. But now that I'm several years out from that, and several years in therapy out from that, and several years of just life and growing and and things out from that, I have been honest with myself that I was afraid of the experience. And of course, I was afraid of losing him. And I was afraid for my mom and my family. But I was also really afraid of what might happen to me once I got to the place where I could say that I was having a really hard time because my dad had died.
Mm-hmm.
Would I go down a road that I might not be able to come back from, be that with food or alcohol or drugs
Mm-hmm.
or self-loathing, self-acceptance, self-love. And I think I'm on the other side of that now, and I'm okay. But it was a very tumultuous time in my life.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear about your dad.
Thanks.
So what I've heard you say that your scariest time was when your father passed away from cancer after being diagnosed in 2014. You and your family, you moved in with your parents, and you was with them all the way until that morning in 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
And so one thing that, like, after getting to the other side, going through therapy, which is an excellent choice, by the way, kudos to taking accountability of your mental health. Um, After coming from the other side, you realize that not only were you scared of losing your parents and seeing that process, which is very scary, but you was also afraid for yourself. You was
Yeah.
afraid of going down a very dark path and possibly not being able to come back from that, which I can identify with very much because I've been there. Um, so now that you're on the other side of that, you have more peace. You went through that time, but you're in a better place, and you're still here. You never went down that path. You kept yourself.
Apparently not too far.
Yeah, well, not too far where you couldn't come back.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
I tip my hat off to you.
It's so comforting to hear that you understand. My high school, so just for perspective, Janine, 129 in my graduating class, probably 14 or 15 who were non-white,
Mm-hmm.
and 27 girls who had had babies or were pregnant. And I don't know why I've remembered those numbers all these years, but it does provide some context for
Mm-hmm.
you. And the neighborhood I grew up in, I lived close to the neighborhood where people of color live,
Mm-hmm.
Monticello Avenue and Water Street. And I had a lot of friends who were Black. I spent a lot of time down there, much to the, disliking of my parents, not because they were racist, but because they were worried about my safety, and probably rightfully so, because of the people I was running around with.
Okay.
But when I was a little younger than that, my 9th grade year, I was really good friends with, there was one prominent Asian family, and there were like, I don't know, 10 brothers and sisters. And the girl that was in my grade, we got to be really good friends that year, and we would often walk home together from our junior high, or from our high school. I guess it was probably 8th grade, actually, because we were still at Central, which is downtown Clarksburg, and we both lived in neighborhoods that were several blocks away. And I would go to her house, and her parents didn't speak English, and her mom was always, cooking something. And I think that I didn't realize it until I was an adult, and I've since reconnected with her, and her nephew is a realtor here in town. So very interesting. But I didn't realize how, her name was May, and I didn't realize when we were younger how much I was being made to feel heard, because looking back, I think I was so ignorant that I didn't even know. I didn't even know that I was visiting the household of one of the only Asian families in our school. I didn't know that all of my questions, because I'm a very questioning, curious person, could have maybe come off as offensive, or, really annoyed her parents. And may I taste that? And why do you have so many brothers and sisters? And
Yeah.
how do you all live in this house together? And how do you stand sharing a room with, but just the fact that she would always tell me more about her culture and her family, I look back on those times now, and I really appreciate that she did that. I mean, I don't know how many seeds she planted in me for helping me with biases that I wasn't even just unconscious of, I didn't even know about. And I'll end with one funny story that we saw her mom when we were walking home one day, and she said, "Mommy, give me money to buy a drink." And her mom said, "No, chin quara." And she just laughed and said, "Oh, mommy, okay." And we we walked away. And I said, "What does chin quata mean? Is that Vietnamese?" And she said, "No, she said drink water. Ching quata." And I mean, I must have been what, 13, 14 years old. And I still remember that to this day. It was so sweet and innocent. And she didn't get mad at me for saying, "She's speaking English, you dummy." She just said, "Oh, she's saying drink water."
That's perfect. One person that made her feel accepted from another race was her friend May from school, from grade school, from when she was 13. So, because she was always, go over her house, always felt accepted by her family. They would cook. She would have dinners there, and just feel welcome. And what else did I hear you say? I also heard you say that that you had a lot of Black friends because you lived close to that part of town, and your parents were worried not because they were Black, but more so because it was the wrong crowd. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah, so
Perhaps I was the wrong crowd.
you was a bad influence.
Mhm.
But with that, you became really good friends with May, and you spent a lot of time in her home with her family, and she would teach you about a lot of her her and her family's culture and the kind of foods they eat and everything, and actually brought up, or you realized there were some biases within you that you weren't even conscious of, that you was able to get rid of because of what she was teaching you.
Mhm.
And and also with her teaching you about her family, it helped plant the seeds for how you become the woman you are today.
Yeah.
And then also heard how you thought with through her really thick accent, you thought she was saying something in her language, and turned out she was just speaking English with a really thick accent. That was funny.
Yeah. Great. Yes. And I probably was not being concise enough, but I was trying to communicate that I grew up in a pretty homogenous community.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
homogenous that we didn't even know how
Yeah.
homogenous it was.
Right.
Until, those things are still influential to me
Mm-hmm.
decades later.
Yep.
So,
I bet. I bet.
yeah. How about you?
Let's see. When I felt heard by someone from another race, I would have to say it was right. I think the day of when um when the news story broke out about George Floyd, and I was really upset. I mean, aside from everything I was going through at that time, when that story came out, I was like, you know what? I am done. I'm sick of always hearing about stuff like this. When's it going to stop? Like, I was really frustrated. So of course, I'm on social media. I post some things about it, and one of my friends, he was a pilot that I used to work with, and he messaged me. And he was like, "I may not understand, but I'm here to listen if you want to talk." And he was a white guy,
How
and I
brave.
was and I was like, "Okay, like you're gonna be in my heart forever, because you're like." I really was taken back how he was willing to listen to me, and just try to understand why I'm so angry. And that just really touched me. And now I was thinking about that every day. So I was able to, to explain to him. I broke it down, and he was like, okay. And it's like now he has to understand that this is just fundamentally wrong, for one. And B, now he knows even more as to why how it's just messed up on so many levels, and why it just needs to stop. So
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
So what I heard you say is that the day that George Floyd was killed, you were so moved by a friend of yours that you used to work with,
Mm-hmm.
who was a pilot,
Yep.
and he reached out to you in a very simple text and said that he was here for you and he was available to listen. From what you said, I got the impression that he was not a person of color.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you did say that. I wasn't sure.
I probably did. I probably was talking too fast. I do that sometimes too.
And I was really I heard you say that you never forgot that, and that it has a place in your heart every moment of every day now.
Mm-hmm.
And I am pretty sure I heard you say that you all got to talk some,
Mm-hmm.
and that you appreciated him being there for you and having that outlet, especially because you really could use someone to talk to.
And not just that, but it was refreshing to see someone who was not Black wanting to understand what was wrong and the severity of it all.